Hello again, this is JJM. I am a shareholder in the California law firm Erickson Arbuthnot, and I'm the managing partner of our firm's Oakland East Bay office. We're here as part of our continuing series, talking about how to evaluate potential exposure in habitability cases. First factor I think to look at is who are the plaintiffs? If you have multiple plaintiff tenants versus one or two, that often means the difference between a potentially high exposure case and a lower exposure, or at least a more manageable exposure case. The more plaintiffs, the greater the exposure, the greater the sense to a jury potentially that there is a management problem versus a problem tenant or problem tenants. The other factor to look at is the plaintiff a city? The fact that a city is suing a landlord often imparts to a jury an air of legitimacy to the allegations. If the city is suing, there must be a real case here, jurors often think. If the city is a plaintiff, there's an added exposure that because a municipality can recover not only attorney's fees, but treble damages and statutory penalties that might not be available to a private plaintiff. Are any of the plaintiff's children? This is especially important in habitability claims based on pests or vermin intrusion, such as bed bugs or rodents. In our experience, jurors often find a greater damages in cases involving plaintiffs as children. Are there notices of violation by a public agency against a landlord? Under California law, specifically the California Civil Code, if the owner slash property manager fails to abate a notice of violation within the statutorily required 35 days, this is admissible to prove liability against the landlord and also opens up the door to a award of attorney's fees under the Civil Code. Are there multiple suits by different tenants? Sometimes this occurs over time, this sometimes occurs at the same time. But these are also potentially admissible to prove a pattern and practice of the landlord, and what we've seen in some very recent jury verdicts could lead to an award of punitive damages. Another factor to consider is the property managed by a professional property manager or is it self-managed? If the property is professionally managed, hopefully the greater the likelihood that the management standards are applied to record keeping, you have better resident property managers, i.e. better witnesses, you have more professional relations with tenants, and hopefully a better adherence to accepted standards for property management. Has there been a constructive eviction is another thing to look for. Tenants who claim constructive eviction and can only find a more expensive rental unit can claim what are called rent differential damages, which is essentially the difference in rent that the plaintiff tenant paid before versus now. And if that's multiplied over several months to several years or more, that can lead to a significant increase in the claimed economic damages, especially in high rent areas such as San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Oakland. Another factor to consider is there evidence that the landlord harassed a tenant or evidence that the landlord ignored a tenant's complaints or requests for repair? So on that issue, we look at how good is the record keeping? Is there documentation of the landlord's response to tenant complaints, requests for repair, maintenance, or showing that management responded quickly and appropriately to complaints and repair requests? In other words, how good of a case can you put on? These are the factors that influence the potential exposure to an insured or to a client. Do you have good witnesses and documents? These are critical to determining potential exposure and how viable the defenses are. That's all we have for today, and we'll see you next time.